Good afternoon and welcome to your 4 to 5. I'm Maddie Gardner, joined by Eric Chilton, Tahasia Moyes, and Christian Morgan this afternoon. As always, this is an interactive show. It's really built to connect you with your community and with us. So throughout the show, we are chatting with you on our live stream. Join us on our Facebook page and use our hashtag 4 to 5. The U.S. Army Reserve is now investigating Cal Cunningham, the Democratic candidate for the race in U.S. Senate. This after romantic texts were discovered between Cunningham and a woman who is not his wife. Now, a spokesperson with the Army Reserve released a statement about the investigation, saying the Army Reserve is investigating the matters involving Lieutenant Colonel James Cunningham. WFMY News 2 asked if that investigation is directly tied to those text messages that Cunningham apologized for on Saturday, but the spokesperson would not say. Cunningham is a Bronze Star veteran. He joined the Army National Reserve after the September 11th attacks and became a lieutenant colonel who served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. A spokesperson for the Cunningham campaign released a statement about the investigation, saying Cal will participate in this process, but it does not change the stakes of this election or the need for new leaders who will fight for the issues North Carolinians care about instead of caving to the corporate special interest, which is exactly what Senator Tillis has done in his years in Washington. Meanwhile, in Washington, a face-off over coronavirus stimulus money. President Donald Trump is now saying if Congress sends him a standalone bill for stimulus checks, he would sign it and that money would go out immediately to Americans. But this comes after the president's demands yesterday to end negotiations over stimulus relief until after the November election. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows told Fox News in an interview this morning that the president made his first decision based off recent conversations between Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and House Majority Leader Nancy Pelosi. Meadows says it became clear that they would not reach a deal. Now, a spokesperson for the Speaker of the House said Pelosi and Mnuchin spoke briefly this morning about the possibility of a standalone bill to help airlines. President Trump says the House and the Senate should approve $25 billion to support airline payrolls and $135 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program for small businesses.
Democrats rejected previous attempts for smaller bills in negotiations, saying that the need in America is too great to pick and choose who gets help. So we asked you on our WFMY News 2 Facebook page to join the conversation and answer if you think stimulus negotiations should be on hold until after the election. Brian Bennett mining those comments. What are people saying?
Yeah, a lot of interesting perspectives, Tahasia, as always. Let's dive right on in. We're going to start with Karen, who says, I think our country can't afford any more money output. Hey, if we all need to get 2 jobs, so be it. Keeping it moving. Angela says, no, he should go ahead with it. People need this. While Brandon says, I think the government needs to send people back to work and quit expecting Uncle Sam to coddle everyone through this virus. Joy, on the other hand, says, if we can continue with the appointment of a new Supreme Court justice, there's no reason we can't continue negotiations for a stimulus package. And lastly, Ramona says, it doesn't matter what we think, they're always going to look after themselves first.
All right, Brian, thank you so much. And if you want to be a part of the conversation, you can chime in on the WFMY News 2 Facebook page. You can find that post that we just showed you, or you can voice your comment on the live stream for the 4 to 5, and we'll see it in the next break.
Well, the White House press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, says President Trump is feeling well during his recovery from coronavirus. Now, McEnany sharing the statements from doctors, adding that the president's physical and vital signs are stable and normal. The president was without a fever for more than 4 days and hasn't had symptoms in 24 hours. The doctors also say that the blood work of the president did show levels of coronavirus antibodies. The newest White House official announcing a coronavirus diagnosis is senior advisor Stephen Miller. Miller's wife, Katie Miller, did test negative, though, for the virus.
And it seems President Donald Trump is back working in the Oval Office today as a Marine stands guard outside of the West Wing. This just days after he he tested positive for COVID-19. Now, while at Walter Reed Medical Center, the president received an experimental treatment called monoclonal antibodies. Trump is one of 10 people who has received that treatment under a compassionate use exemption, but hundreds are getting a similar treatment through clinical trials, some at Duke Health. I spoke with one of the researchers in that clinical trial, Dr. Emily Coe.
The antibodies are proteins that your body makes, and I like to describe them to patients as little soldiers that go around and neutralize the virus.
In Duke's trial, patients who are in the hospital with COVID-19 are getting a concentrated dose of one antibody through an IV. Researchers believe the dose fights the virus for up to 4 weeks. While this treatment is new for COVID-19, the idea of using antibodies to fight viruses is not.
Comes from this old treatment called convalescent plasma, where basically they take blood from people who have recovered from an infection, usually a viral infection. They've used it in Ebola and SARS and even in the swine flu outbreak.
But unlike that convalescent plasma treatment, the monoclonal antibody treatment is more concentrated and can be mass produced without having to rely on people to donate their plasma. Almost 60 people have participated in Duke's trial, either getting the antibodies or a placebo, but they're looking to enroll 1,000 to 2,000 patients so this treatment can in turn help other people. Now, there is not an FDA approved treatment for COVID-19, but some drugs like remdesivir have received emergency use authorization. Dr. Coe says that's a possibility with the antibody treatment too if the trial continues in the right direction.
All right, let's get to your 4 to 5 roundup right now. Greensboro City Council has voted to officially apologize for the city's role in one of its most violent events in the city's history. In a 7-2 vote on Tuesday, the council's resolution formally apologized for the Greensboro Police Department's role in the shooting deaths of 5 people back on November 3rd, 1979. That day is often referred to as the Greensboro Massacre. Members of the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazis shot and killed 5 members of the Communist Workers' Party at an anti-Klan protest. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin has posted bond and is now out of prison. Chauvin is charged with second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter in the death of George Floyd. The death garnered national and international attention and spurred protests all across the world. Chauvin's bail was set in June at $1.25 million or $1 million with conditions. Court records show he posted a non-cash bond of $1 million today. Jacob Blake's attorney says he is now out of the hospital but is still working to recover. Now, Blake is the man who was shot by police in Kenosha, Wisconsin. His attorney says he's in a spinal injury rehab center in Chicago. He declined to say when Blake left the hospital or how long he's expected to remain in rehab. Blake's father told reporters that one of the first things Blake asked upon regaining consciousness in the hospital was why he had been shot so many times.
Well, 10 out of 10 would recommend this weather day. Absolutely gorgeous. You can see that beautiful Carolina blue sky all across the Triad on our weather camera network. And by all October standards, it's a pretty warm day. Temperature sitting at 80 degrees all across the Triad in Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and down in Asheboro and High Point as well. Tonight, under those mostly clear skies, not quite as cool as we have been the last few nights. We'll drop back into the upper 50s for overnight lows. Your Thursday, another warm day on the way. Lots of sunshine. We'll be close to 80 again in the afternoon. By the way, well, he did hit 80 today, the first time since September 14th. Of course, all eyes, are on Hurricane Delta. Now a Category 2 storm with 100-mile-per-hour winds starting to pull away from the Yucatan Peninsula. And as it does that, it's going to move over warm water, so it likely will strengthen again before making a landfall on the Gulf Coast later this week. What can it mean for us in the Carolinas? We'll talk about timing and rainfall totals coming up on 4 to 5.
A new High Point University poll finds voters are incredibly interested in this year's presidential election. Nearly 73% of people polled say that on a scale from 1 to 10, their interest is at a 10. Now, when it comes to how people are getting their information, 75% of voters polled say their sources are television ads. 64% say information from the internet. Now, the information, however, is about getting getting to those voters kind of varies depending on the state races. 59% of those polled say information coming from online, and then 49% say their information comes from radio ads. When asked if voters felt they were well informed on the election, only 33% said that they feel very informed. Now, keep this in mind. The deadline to register to vote here in North Carolina by mail or in person is Friday, October 9th. After that, you can do same-day registration in person at the polls during early voting from the 15th to the 31st.
Well, perhaps some people will get their information from presidential and vice presidential debates. Tonight, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator and Democratic nominee Kamala Harris will face off in their first and only debate. You can watch it right here at 9 o'clock on WFMY News 2. But today I ask you on Facebook, if you had the chance to ask both candidates the same question, what would you ask them? Got some interesting comments here. We'll start with Eric, who said, I would ask, how do you plan to bring unity and decency back to our ravaged nation? Adam said, I would ask both of them to name something the other one did policy-wise that they agree with, how some hint of bipartisanship. You'd think we're in a civil war the way one party talks about the other. Thomas had a longer comment here, but it is important to read. He said, of course, we expect you to be loyal to the president, but the very nature of the job of VP is to assume the presidency should that become necessary. With the U.S. male's life expectancy statistically between 76 and 78 years, in a sense, the American people are voting for you, expecting you to become successors for the mantle of leadership for your respective parties. While we all hope and pray this will not become a reality, how might you distinguish yourself from the cast shadow of your predecessor? So I think that is something that many people are keeping in the back of their minds, because both candidates are of an advanced age. They're both in their mid to late 70s. And of course, we're also dealing with a global pandemic, which, as we've seen in the last week, no one is immune to.
It's interesting. My wife and I had the same conversation just the other night, and we were like, you know, if you look at their age and think about 4 years if it were to be Trump, or 8 possibility if it were to be Biden, I mean, that puts them close to, if not already, into their 80s. It is something you have to think about. It has happened before in United States history where a president would pass away, of course, and another one, vice president, would have to move in. But I think it is something that we have to think about when we're casting our votes, unfortunately.
And I think just in general, right? I mean, if you are the vice president, you are assuming that you will become president if something happens, right? And so we should be paying attention to these debates, both on the presidential and the vice presidential line there. But I did think it was really insightful of that one commenter who said, what would you say that you approved of your opponent? Because at the end of the day, there are a number of parties here in America, and we all have to work together.
I think that everyone not only wants to see some bipartisanship, but the entire country is craving some of that right now. So that would be interesting. More of the 4 to 5 is coming up right after this break. You can chat with us on Facebook. Just find our live stream on the WFMY News 2 Facebook page.
You know, there are many different facets to the Girl Scouts organization. I know what most of us think of when we think of the Girl Scouts, those cookies, of course, but there's another campaign, and it's actually underway right now. It is pretty cool. I spoke with the Girl Scouts director, Bonnie McCumber, to get the details. So Bonnie, I have to admit, I'm being full transparent here, that I was not as aware of this program, of course, as we are the cookie program with Girl Scouts. So tell us a little bit about how this all works. What can we expect?
So our fall product program is kind of a supplemental product program. It runs at the beginning of the troop year to help our troops get some startup funds to get their year going. It is nuts, candy, and magazines, and it's kind of perfect for the whole COVID situation because it's a program that a huge chunk of it can be done online. So it's different from the cookie program in the sense that they're not out in front of stores. It's more of a friends and family. They make great holiday gifts, and it's just another opportunity for our girls to learn entrepreneurship skills like money management, business ethics, customer relations, all of that kind of stuff.
So London, from your standpoint then as a Girl Scout, what do you like about this and what do you think you learned from this process?
You can sell all the nuts and candy, and you can just, you make a profit of the money because some of the money goes to the troop and some of it goes to you. And I just think it's fun.
So Bonnie, let me ask you a quick question. What if, if you don't happen to know a Girl Scout, you are not left out in the cold, I would imagine.
If you go to our Girl Scout website, which is www.girlscoutsp2p.org, we have a link on our main page that you can click on, and we will connect you with a local Girl Scout troop who will be glad to help you get an order placed.
Hey London, one more question for you. Just tell me, London, in general, what do you love about being a Scout?
Mostly making new friends and having fun.
I love that fun is your common thread here. I am with you on that. Thank you guys for taking time out today. Best of luck. It's a pretty cool program, and who doesn't like specialty candies, nuts, and magazines, right? You can eat the treats while you read the magazines. I love this, and I think we all should reach out and help them out.
It's so funny because that troop for the Girl Scouts came on a station tour last year, and I met London, and she had the best question. So the whole time I could hardly pay attention to your story because I was thinking about how much fun I had when the Girl Scouts came to visit last year.
I always hear so much about the Girl Scouts, and I think to myself, man, I feel like I would have loved to have been a Girl Scout growing up. I was not involved in it, but I think it is just a great organization that teaches responsibility and determination and just building on skills that will take you throughout your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this is a safe space. I'm a Girl Scout dropout. It's so
It's okay.
sad. I wish I would have
okay.
stuck with it because I look back and I'm like, oh, I really missed out on some awesome things. So thank you for accepting me, everyone.
So you didn't get all the pins.
I dropped out too.
Don't do that. Just consider this a message from your future selves, boys and girls of America. Don't drop out of the Scouts. It's for your own good. We have regrets. We'll be right back.
Holidays are fast approaching. They're going to be here before you know it. So the question is, how do you get all of your holiday shopping done safely in the middle of the pandemic? And no, we're not talking about you need to go online to buy things. So ZenReach analyzed the busiest and the slowest shopping times to help you beat the crowds should you choose to leave your house. The data shows the busiest shopping hours are between noon and 2 p.m. and between 5 and 7 p.m., maybe when people have breaks. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are the busiest shopping days of the week. And the busiest shopping times are Fridays between 5 and 7, Saturdays between 1 and 8, and Sundays between noon and 4. Hey, that's when I always go out. Well, Tuesdays and Wednesdays are better days to shop, either before 10 a.m. or after 9 p.m. Sundays before 11 a.m. is the least busiest time to shop overall. And I'll tell you why. It's because people are either at church or they're sleeping in because they aren't going that week and there's no one out.
Or they're watching CBS Sunday Morning. That might take up your time as well, does mine. Yeah. Monday, that's my day, usually shopping. Usually you avoid crowds on Mondays.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we want to avoid crowds more than ever this year because we are in the middle of the pandemic. But I just like to avoid crowds even when there's not a virus going around. So online shopping can happen 24 hours a day from my couch.
Yes, of course, that is the safest option. That's Saturday, though, between 1 and 8. I'm always out of my house shopping at that time. So I guess I need to go earlier. Sundays.
I will say, Christian, you have an advantage here because you work on the weekends, so you get some weekdays off. When I worked on the weekends, that's when I would do my errands, was in the middle of the week.
That's right. It seems like Tuesday is a really good day to get stuff done. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of people out on Mondays or Tuesdays. And especially earlier in the morning, it seems like more people kind of wait to get up a little later and do things in the afternoon. So I do have an advantage there. You're right.
Yeah. That's the only thing I miss about working on the weekends, Christian. But you do a great job, and we're glad to have you here on a Wednesday. All right, more of the 4 to 5 is coming up right after this. But you know we are live all the time. You can find us on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, or our Twitter page. Use our hashtag 4 to 5. We'll see you there.
Hey, ice cold milk and an Oreo cookie, they forever go together.
Good afternoon and welcome back to your 4 to 5. I'm Maddie Gardner here with Eric Chilton, Tahesha Moyes, and Christian Morgan working from home this afternoon. This is an interactive news show. We really want to connect you with your community and us. So join us on our Facebook page. We are live streaming the entire show there. Join the conversation by using our hashtag 4 to 5. Let's start off with your 4 to 5 roundup. Facebook is removing all accounts across its platforms affiliated with the right-wing QAnon conspiracy theory group. The company said Tuesday that it will remove Facebook pages, groups, and Instagram accounts for representing QAnon, even if they don't promote violence. Facebook did not immediately explain what it means for Facebook groups to represent QAnon, but the AP reports the platform will consider the name, biography, or about section, as well as any discussions that occur on the page, group, or Instagram account. In the meantime, Instagram will start automatically hiding negative comments on posts. It's one of several new steps that the Facebook-owned social media platform is taking to reduce bullying and harassment. Instagram has been testing the feature in recent days and said it will target comments that users have reported as inappropriate in the past. Users must now click View Hidden Comments to unveil a negative comment that has been removed. We are now less than a week away from the High Point Fall Furniture Market. Normally, the furniture show only runs for 3 days, but the High Point Market Authority says the event was extended to 9 days in order to break up attendance and meet social distancing requirements. It starts Tuesday, October 13th. To date, 70% of active exhibitor profiles have confirmed that their doors will be open for the event.
Well, the FDA has approved safety guidelines for coronavirus vaccine approval. Now, the new guidelines say the vaccine makers need to follow the trial participants for at least 2 months. So that would make sure we rule out any safety issues before they request emergency approval for a vaccine. The 2-month requirement, by the way, likely will push an approval for a vaccine until after the election. This does go against the Trump administration's push to have the vaccine approved before Election Day. A senior administration official said Monday the White House blocked the FDA's plans to publish these guidelines. The FDA went ahead and posted the guidelines to what they say would be ensuring the public is aware and that safety is the top priority.
So our sister station down in Charlotte did some digging on distribution for a vaccine in North Carolina once approved, talking about who would get those first doses. Now, the North Carolina Institute of Medicine Advisory Committee is now recommending several groups get the vaccine first, including high-risk groups, anyone who works in a high-risk field like healthcare or factories. Officials say for vaccines to work, at least 90% of the population, at least 70% of the population needs to get a vaccine or be naturally immune to the virus. Now, I wanted you at home to be a part of this conversation. So I asked you on Facebook today, who do you think should get that first round of a new vaccine? Let's start with our first comment. It comes from Cheryl Martin, who says, I think it should be volunteer. Carrie Gatling says the elderly and those with upper respiratory conditions are really at risk. Robert says the doctors and nurses working in the hospital. Rita Hoover says all government officials. Katie says 65 and up. Michelle Grandi says people who volunteer. And lastly, Dale says Congress. Now, I've been following this conversation for a while because there's been a lot of back and forth, guys, on who should get the vaccine first. Even politicians are not agreeing with this. But I think those high-risk groups and those who work around people who are high risk, I think that would be a good first step.
And you want to make sure the people who are most at risk of complications, that's a complicated word to say, they get those vaccines first because, of course, we want to prevent as much as possible them from even getting the virus in the first place. So it makes sense to me to vaccinate those high-risk groups and then people who have to be out and about, those essential workers, which is a term we have heard for the past 7 months now, but make sure that, they're immune before we get it to the rest of the population. I think the FDA's recommendations make sense at this point.
Yeah, kind of a no-brainer that the high-risk folks would go first. I think the big question is going to be, where do you go after that? How do you handle everybody else? That's probably going to be the big question. We will see how all that pans out. Let's talk a little bit about sports right now. Another game postponed for Appalachian State. The team's game against Georgia Southern has been rescheduled. Now, the teams are supposed to play next Wednesday. The game is now Saturday, December 12th. App State postponed the game last week against Louisiana because of positive coronavirus cases. 4 coaches, 20 players are still out because they're in quarantine. The Mountaineers have not practiced since before that September 26th game. Another Patriots player testing positive for coronavirus. Cornerback Stephen Gilmore tested positive. That's according to the NFL. Patriots were scheduled to play at home against Denver Broncos. That would be this Sunday. The team has a bye week following that game, and they won't play again until October 25th. Gilmore is the only player to test positive after Tuesday's round of testing. The announcement comes 2 days after the Patriots lost to Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. The team took 2 planes to Kansas City, one for people who have been in contact with Cam Newton, the first player on the team to test positive. And the Titans did not get to return to their facility today because 2 more players tested positive for coronavirus. They had 0 positive tests Monday or Tuesday for the first time after 6 straight days of positive results. The team needed to go 3 days without a positive test to return to their headquarters. The Titans outbreak, by the way, is the first in the league. That team has had 22 cases. The game against Buffalo, scheduled for Sunday, they haven't had an announcement on if the team will have to postpone that game or not.
Hurricane Delta is making its way towards the Gulf Coast, but a triad man vacationing in Mexico narrowly escaped the storm. High Point native Noah Rudolph and his girlfriend Lexi Beecraft were on a belated graduation trip in Cancun. They were able to enjoy 18 hours of sunshine and blue waters before they realized they needed to get home ahead of the rapidly intensifying storm.
Then had to wait at the airport all day and watch all these other flights take off and watch the weather change. So I was stressing out.
I was like, I don't care where you take me, just get me into America, get us out of this city, get us away from this hurricane.
The couple got a flight out and are back on their way to Charlotte right now. From there, they will finish up their vacation at a beach house in Myrtle Beach, quarantining until they can return home.
And of course, all eyes are on Hurricane Delta. Made landfall as a Category 2 storm near Puerto Morelos this morning at about 6:30 a.m. with 110-mile-per-hour winds. Still holding on to that Category 2 status with 100-mile-per-hour winds, but as it moves over the ocean, sorry, I flipped my graphics the wrong way. As it moves over the ocean, it's expected to re-strengthen a little bit, back up to a Category 3 storm by the time it approaches the Gulf Coast. So still high alert for places along the Gulf Coast from Louisiana to Mississippi. Then its track after that likely brings it to the Carolinas. So it's likely going to bring us some rain over the weekend. The timing's starting to become a little more clear. I don't think Saturday's a washout, but there will be some scattered showers. And the heavier stuff starts to arrive on Sunday. Generally, around 1 inch is going to be a good bet for rainfall here in the Triad. Of course, you see that stronger, that heavier axis of rainfall back out to the west. And that could shift a little bit just depending on the track of the storm and the speed of the storm. So I wouldn't put it past it to put some higher totals, maybe closer to 1.5 inches in our mountains and places west. But for us here in the Triad, generally around 1 inch is what we're looking at right now over the course of the weekend. But that's not here yet. We still have nice weather to enjoy, and temperature-wise, by all October standards, a much warmer day. 80 degrees across the area. The last time we got to 80, by the way, was September 14th. So it's been a little bit. Nice weather continues for the rest of the week. One more warm day tomorrow. A bit cooler behind that cold front on Friday. Temperatures in the upper 60s to near 70. And of course, we'll be watching the weekend. If you were looking to go check out the colors, fall colors, this might not be the weekend to do it. We're hoping that rain doesn't bring down any of those colors and those nice leaves that are starting to change. After the weekend, things start to dry out heading into next week, and we get back to the 70s.
All right, so this is the big news of the day. The Army is now investigating U.S. Senate candidate Cal Cunningham.
And most of us know the basics of an investigation, right? And a military investigation is pretty similar. The military lawyer that I talked to, though, says it's known as this right here, AR-15-6.
That officer will interview numerous witnesses. They will take evidence, text messages, photographs, whatever physical evidence might exist. Colonel Cunningham will be afforded the opportunity to speak to that officer should he desire. He does not have to. He has the same rights against self-incrimination as anybody else.
Okay, so what happens once the investigator is done with this?
Okay, then it's handed off to the next higher up commander, and it's that person that makes the decision whether or not any kind of action is to be taken.
And what are the options?
Oh, there's so many. It could be really anything from just simply a letter of reprimand, something that's in his file, to a court martial. And what could make the difference? Well, we're going to get into more of that tonight coming up at 6 o'clock. And with Guilford County schools in mind, with reentry just 2 weeks away, we have 3 school leaders joining us at 5:30 to answer your reentry questions. We want you to text your questions 336-379-5775 and get your answers.
You know, it's hard enough to try to make a splash in, say, the fashion industry, even if you're living in Manhattan or New York City. It's hard enough. Imagine how hard it is if you're located here in the Triad. Well, Nikki Wallace decided to do something about that and kind of help local designers and models bridge that gap from here to Manhattan. She started the Winston-Salem Fashion Week, and it starts this weekend virtually. I spoke with her to get the details. Nikita, this is really cool. How did you start this? Where did the inspiration for this come from?
My inspiration came when I was working in the school system with students that came into the office. Many of those were wanted to be aspiring actresses, designers, models, rap artists, anything in the entertainment industry or fashion industry. And their first thought was to go off to New York or LA, Atlanta, to some of those big primary markets that are very competitive. And I had just returned from New York, and it was a challenge for me at that age. And just imagining a student coming from, this area going into a big market like that, it would be very challenging and very competitive. So I thought I'd why not we do a fashion week here? And in 2015, I was able to actually pitch it as a senior thesis. And from there, we were able to execute the first fashion week at Salem College. We had over 250 participants that came out for a 2-day event, as well as, models, designers that came from, this area. So it was a pretty good success.
So tell me how this will play out this year virtually. How does this work?
So when you log in, you get an access code, and it depends on the ticket type. You're able to intermingle with, have a mix and mingle, and network with people from all over. Then there's an opportunity where we have 8 sessions, 8 breakout sessions that deals with the fashion industry. Some fantastic speakers, internationally well-known industry professionals will be conducting those breakout sessions and doing it all from your home.
Well, this all sounds fabulous. This is a great gateway for local designers because I know it's really tough to make your mark in this. So thank you for all the work. Good luck. We'll be watching. It's really cool. If you want more information, all you got to do is look for this story on WFMYnews2.com. It is up as we speak. So let's have a little fun with this. I decided to ask everybody on Facebook, what was the worst fashion element that you remember from growing up or back in the day? And this one got some hilarious comments. Let's start out with Candace, who says, I hated those polyester leisure suits for the way they looked, and back then on the dance floor, people smoked on the dance floor, if somebody touched it with a cigarette, it melted the fabric and ruined the suit. That means it's just quality material, doesn't it? Patricia Cox said, miniskirts, they were horrible. Or awful. Judy says elephant leg bell bottoms, okay? MD Moore says, I think it was the leisure suits and wide collars. You could fit a forest full of small animals under those collars. Phyllis says those old wooden high heels, I think they were called candies, I'm not sure. And then Devonna says parachute pants from the 80s were the absolute worst. I can tell you the consensus overall when I read a ton of my comments, leisure suits, bell bottoms, and wide collar. It looks like the 70s wins with the worst.
The 70s fashion and aesthetic is coming back in Generation Z. I'm telling you what, sooner or later we're going to see them with the forest full of small animals under their collars, which was the best comment.
And the 90s are coming back, right? So I'm just thinking, are you to the point where when what you grew up with is coming back in style again, does that mean you're old? Or does that mean you're relevant again? I don't know.
Both. I tell you, no, I'm serious. 90s music, 90s fashion, 70s music and fashion. Dreams by Fleetwood Mac was back on the charts this week because of a viral TikTok.
Can always count on TikTok.
Just please don't bring back leisure suits.
No, I need you to wear a leisure suit on the 4 to 5.
Do you guys remember those popcorn
I'm so glad
tops?
I missed that.
The one size fits all, Tahisha?
Yes. Mm-hmm. What happened to those?
They died, just like they should have. They went away. We thought that was so cool. One size fits all clothing is always a gamble. You never know.
And the jelly shoes. Remember those?
I love the jelly shoes.
Smelly feet. Yeah.
I was a victim of gaucho pants in the early 2000s. They came back. They were a bad idea
belt?
then.
Did you have the belt in the front?
You know I did. A little tie belt. We're going to break. We'll be right back.
One size fits all is a crock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Welcome back to your 4 to 5. The California governor's office wants diners to wear their masks while they eat. All right, let's break this down. The office is advising restaurant goers to wear their masks in between bites of their food. So masks are required in California for anyone who is outside of their home, and that includes offices, factories, and customer service companies, but they're also required inside public places. The rules do say that you can take your mask off while you're eating or drinking, but that is why so many people are confused about this tweet that says minimize the number of times you take your mask off. I have to say, I'm a little bit confused about this tweet too, because what good is that doing? I'm serious, Tahisha. If you're eating and then you take it off and you put it back on, like, is that really I want to ask an expert if this actually makes sense.
No, I'm just laughing because it doesn't. That's why I'm laughing. You were reading the last part of that tweet and I was like, wait a second. So am I just supposed to shove everything in my mouth in one bite, put my mask on, and that's eating my meal? I don't know.
So during the commercial break, I designed something I want to show you.
Oh no!
This is the mask. It's a metal frame with earpieces that go around here, and that's a sensor. And this is like a little Venetian blind thing here. When it senses the spoon coming or fork to your mouth, it raises up automatically. There you go.
Like a garage door. Weather. We're going to weather. I'm making the executive decision. Just let's, Christian.
Just don't try to figure it out, guys. Let's talk about the weather because it's nice. In fact, we're at 80 degrees in Greensboro, the first time since September 14th. So it's been a little while. So by all standards, it's a much warmer day for the beginning of October than it typically is on average. Tonight, temperatures dropping down into the upper 50s under mostly clear skies for your Thursday. Another warm day at 80 on the way with a lot of sunshine. Of course, all eyes are on Hurricane Delta. And just as of this 5 o'clock advisory that just came out, it's now back down to a Category 1 hurricane with 85-mile-per-hour winds. That land on the Yucatan Peninsula has really been taking a toll on it over the last few hours. But it is expected to move back over warm water in the Gulf and re-strengthen up back to a Category 2, possibly even a Category 3 storm before it comes ashore on the Gulf Coast. The track that it takes after that is going to mean a lot for us in terms of rainfall here in the Carolinas and specifically the Piedmont. Scattered showers on Saturday. I don't think Saturday is a washout, but the heavier stuff will start to arrive late Saturday night and heading into your Sunday. Generally, I think around 1 inch of rain is a good possibility here in the Triad. Of course, there could be some higher totals back to the west and along the mountains. By the way, something cool for you to see in the sky tonight, Moon and Mars close by. It's the closest that it'll be until 2035. So get out and see that. Nice weather continues for the rest of the work week. All eyes on the weekend. Drying out, warming back up into the 70s starting next week.
Coming up on WFMY News 2 at 5 o'clock, U.S. Senate candidate Cal Cunningham is now under investigation by the U.S. Army Reserve. This comes after he apologized for sending romantic texts to a woman who is not his wife. We are digging deeper into this investigation next at 5 o'clock.
Hello, mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Hello. Callie, did you need a tropical satellite or anything like that? I don't think we talked. You did. Okay, great.
Hi, Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado.
Hi there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 3, 5.
time for my 2 cents. I am a pretty positive person, but as we live through this pandemic, it can be hard to find positive moments if you bury yourself in the negativity. For the last 3 years, I've hosted the Women's Only 5K Walk and Run. It's one of my favorite events each year. The energy you feel at the race is unmatched. And because my mother is a breast cancer survivor going on 17 years now, the cause is near and dear to my heart. Obviously, 3,000 women gathering together in one place wasn't an option this year, so the race turned virtual, which is a bummer. In years past, my mother would fly into town to support me as I host, and she would walk the race with strangers. Well, this year, she still came, and I got to do the race with her, and I can't express how happy that made me. We had a chance to talk about life, pray together, and just reflect on how far she's come. Now, we wouldn't have had those moments most likely if the race went on as scheduled. And as we finished, we laughed, we hugged, and we danced to Rachel Platten's song, Fight Song. And one line that always sticks out to me is because I still got a lot of fight left in me. And she does. And I'm so grateful. So I'll end with this. There's always a silver lining if you just look closely. Form your own opinion. That's just my 2 cents. That's your 4 to 5. WFMY News 2 at 5 starts right now.
The U.S. Army Reserve is investigating U.S. Senate candidate Cal Cunningham after the reservist admitted to a romantic text exchange with a woman who is also married.
New reports also indicate that this affair went beyond text messages. WFMY News 2's Jess Winters has the latest on this investigation and Cunningham's response.
Today, the U.S. Army Reserve confirms they are looking into Cal Cunningham's extramarital affair. Lieutenant Colonel Simon Flake sending this simple statement. The Army Reserve is investigating the matters involving Lieutenant Colonel James Cunningham. As such, we are unable to provide further details at this time. The Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate has proudly proclaimed his military service throughout his campaign. Extramarital affairs are a violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, but it's unclear if he was on active duty at the time. A spokeswoman for Cunningham responded to the investigation, saying, quote, Cal will participate in this process, but it does not change the stakes of this election or the need for new leaders who will fight for the issues North Carolinians care about instead of caving to the corporate special interests, which is exactly what Senator Tillis has done in his years in Washington. End quote. Senator Tom Tillis has been calling for a formal investigation into Cunningham's indiscretions from the get-go.
I do believe that this is relevant to the race, and I think that Cal would do himself a service by coming forward and telling everybody and giving everybody a full explanation for his actions.
Jess Winters, WFMY News 2.
Jess, thank you. President Donald Trump's doctors are monitoring his progress as he continues treatment for coronavirus. Now, senior administration officials tell CBS News the president is expected to return to work in the Oval Office soon, and that isolation carts with personal protective equipment have been set up for White House staff.
The White House and the West Wing are deep cleaned on a regular basis, so there's a way for him to work out of a variety of rooms safely when he's ready to do that.
The president's doctors released a memo stating that labs now show detectable levels of antibodies. They add he's been symptom-free for the past 24 hours and his vitals continue to be stable. President Trump's doctors say he received an experimental monoclonal antibody treatment at the hospital. Now, it's a similar treatment that is undergoing clinical trials at Duke Health. Researcher Dr. Emily Coe says it's a high dose of antibodies delivered to patients who are hospitalized with COVID-19.
Early on, the company started looking for the best antibody, the best little soldier, and then it multiplied it and replicated it and concentrated it into a high dose of what we call kind of super soldiers, or concentrated antibodies that go around the body and neutralize the virus.
Dr. Coe says patients are responding well. Right now, nearly 60 people are part of Duke's trial. They hope to have 1,000 to 2,000 patients take part and move forward with an emergency use authorization from the FDA.
President Trump is pushing for some coronavirus relief a day after he stopped negotiations on a larger package until after the election. He is now urging Congress to pass standalone bills for a second round of $1,200 stimulus checks and relief funding to the airline industry and small businesses. Yesterday, he advised his administration to stop negotiations over a coronavirus relief bill until after the election. The one and only vice presidential debate between Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris is just hours away. Extra safety measures have been put into place. They include plexiglass barriers to separate the candidates. The candidates will be seated 12 feet apart, and guests who do not wear a mask will be escorted out of the debate hall in Salt Lake City. You can watch the 90-minute debate tonight right here on WFMY starting at 9 p.m. We are awaiting a ruling from a federal judge over whether or not North Carolina is giving voters sufficient opportunity to